For more on the implications of what the U.S. Trade Representative said on Monday, let's go ahead and bring in Ryan Patel. He's a global business executive and senior fellow with the Drucker School of Management at Claremont Graduate University. Ryan, always good to see you. First, this is sort of being dubbed Trump 2.0, I guess, with allies. Are you surprised that the Biden administration is taking this position? Joe Biden, the candidate running against Trump, called his a trade war with China, his positions with China, weak and vague.
Yeah, I think it's clear. It's kind of buying time of trying to figure out what the U.S. administration wants to attack or wants to get, right? I mean, you've heard some of the remarks. It was picking at, well, in the past, here was the objective, and their objectives, meaning the Biden administration objectives, is a little bit different, and how to get there. And so that's why I think you see a lot of people paying attention to see, is trade negotiations going to start? Are they, is the U.S. going to dive in deeper so they can move quicker to a deal with China? And I think part of what we're seeing is it's kind of the patient game. There's not that sense of urgency, not just yet.
Part of phase one was that China would agree through its state system to buy a combined total of $200 billion worth of U.S. goods and services over a 2-year period. One of the criticisms from Catherine Tai is that that's not happened yet, but the response from some commentators in Beijing is that's a highly hypocritical thing to ask China to do, and at the same time criticize its support of state industries.
Well, it's interesting because, like you said, there's this fact that was thrown out, and then there's these facts of like, well, how can we both come to the table to discuss what is, like, for me, the objectives aren't as clear as maybe, of what Biden came into. So it just needs to be communicated on where they're going to place that emphasis on. I mean, if you think about what the U.S. is trying to do and what China is trying to do is, at the end of the day, they're both trying to be resilient economically, internally, right, in their own economy, and still be able to be a major trade powerhouse. And I think they're still trying to figure out, both sides, on how to do that, both short term, but more importantly, how they do it long term without having to rely on each other.
We did hear Catherine Tai talking about these exemptions, but do you think the U.S. is targeting of Chinese tech, especially the semiconductor sector? Is that a fair game? Chen Weihua from the China Daily, he said it's proof that the U.S., quote, has lost any moral high ground on the matter.
Yeah, semiconductors is very interesting, right? You and I both know that this is an industry that there's already a shortage of, and many of the companies here in the U.S. are looking for that help. I think it's one aspect of, it seems like the Biden administration has been focusing on tech heavily, and obviously has been talking about security, specifically issues. But, these issues by itself don't mean much if they can't be, what trade and agreed upon. I mean, if you look at what China's exports have been in the trade deficit from July 2021, it's been the highest since last year. So that didn't really necessarily come up in the conversation today about what the trade deficit will be and how it was going to be addressed versus these other options.
If you're sitting in Beijing and you're listening to this, but you also see what the current administration did in Afghanistan, how it behaved with France vis-a-vis the submarine deal, why should you believe what you're hearing from the Biden White House?
Well, if I'm in Beijing right now, I would be putting, the word pressure is not the right word, is urgently saying I'm here at the table. And I'm not saying China hasn't done that, but it really seeing who's dragging their feet. Is it the U.S.? And it seems like people were looking for some kind of tell of, are we going to renegotiate again? Or is it going to be moving forward? Or what is it specifically? I think if I'm in Beijing right now, I think you need to call out what are 3 things that the Biden administration won't do in this trade deal that was a part of phase one. It has to be clear, at least externally. I'm not saying it's not clear to maybe internally, but really understand what is the aspect to get this deal done. I just think that there is a lot of, with COVID and the GDPs recovering on both sides, I have a feeling that we're going to be, you and I are going to be talking about this more in probably the next couple of months at the end of the holiday season, when the economy needs to have a little jump start again and a recovery, because we both know both sides need each other in the short term at the very least.
There was a call for the U.S. to work with its allies on confronting China. Given the fact that some of its allies have different interests when it comes to Beijing from Washington's, how effective do you think that approach will be?
Well, that's a this is where the multinational stakeholders and international policy becomes very, very difficult and sticky. Only because I say that is because China itself has also different investments in South Africa, around the world, in Southeast Asia, where there's partners with the U.S. too. So, it's not, it's not going to be, everyone's going to gang up on one country or the other. That just doesn't seem like it, because at the end of the day, both countries choose what they do for the best interest themselves. And I think when you see partnerships start to occur, it's for the best interest for maybe that group, but not necessarily the overall package. And I think that's where, I think China is seeing, even if there's a coalition, there is certain things for certain countries that rely on their goods. There's certain countries and services and goods that rely on the U.S. So you just look at it from a financial perspective about how the best ROI is occurring versus kind of, with the positioning as much in the short term.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what direction all of this takes. Ryan Patel from Drucker School of Management, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.